I know that everyone is saying we have to go back to when we were great, but that's...
We was kings and queens.
However, the reality is that we're on the precipice of a new world, and we need to move forward.
I agree. It's
into something different, not into the old way.
Yeah, because the old way fell.
Well,
and that's something we got to be real about.
The old way got us here.
Exactly.
At war and in the situation we're in, and that's undeniable. So all of the authority structures that exist in our world brought us to this moment in time.
Driving to work this morning thinking about the patriarchy and kind of some of the situations that have happened at work lately. If you saw my last videos about my interactions with this guy at work, he's not a bad guy. Like I don't dislike the guy, but the way that he's interacting and responding to things is pretty toxic in a lot of situations. And I just been thinking about like his natural response is very aggressive, and that's very common in a lot of men because they've been conditioned to think that that's the way that they're supposed to be, and that's harmful to them too. Like they've been harmed, like you've been harmed by the patriarchy too. Like for all the men out there that are struggling and angry and lashing out and think that this macho manly alpha male thing is what women want and need, like it's so not. And the conditioning that you've been given to think that is also a product of the patriarchy. Like it was men who told you to suck it up, be a man, don't cry, get over it, like it was men who keep perpetuating that.
Welcome to Call for the Truth. I am LaOta of the Sun, and this is Tarvars of the Sun, and today we're going to be speaking about the masculine in detriment. And before we do that, would you call for the truth?
Well, certainly. We encourage you all to join us in the call for the truth. Shall we call forth the frequency of truth to come forward? Shall we call to see the truth in all that we see? Shall we call to hear the truth in all that we hear? Shall we call to speak the truth, calling forth the courage to speak the truth? Shall we call forth nothing less than the truth to come forward into our experience? Now that we are saturated within the truth, we encourage you to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, join us in our continual call for the truth. And so we're talking about the masculine and detriment. Yeah. So would you mind defining what that is so we can kind of lay down some foundational understanding?
I'd like to start at the idea of, for years, of the Sun has been calling for the divine feminine to return back into our world with balance through honor, respect, and gratitude, because the divine feminine and the divine masculine are two polarities of the same idea of creation. We are two ends of the spectrum, but we are united as a polarity of creation. This is the polarity that in all ways, whether it's Mother Earth and Father Sun, whether it's the galaxy or whether it's intergalactic or universal, this principle exists in all things. And at either spectrum are two of the same thing that have different specialties, so to say, and different signatures. So the divine feminine, there was a time in ancient history or in the other earths where the feminine was in power. And that was long ago, and it has mostly been erased. And it did not go well, and there were mistakes made, and there is still a memory of that in the human lineage. The divine masculine is, in many places on the planet, is showing us the fear of the divine feminine through not allowing them to be seen or speak or a variety of different things. And our electronics and our media and the games that the youth are playing are subconscious and consciously in that there is a detriment for the feminine, which the masculine feel they must control or be an authority of or put down. And this is inculcated through every aspect of our world and everything. And it's we can see it in some cases, we're blind to it in others, but it's the background of our experience in everything. So in the world religions, it shows up as the authority being the masculine and the submissive being the feminine. And it is not that that is not a reality at some levels, but it's not at the distortion that we see it in the world is not accurate. So physically, design follows function. Physically, women are built to receive and men are built to give in the same way the sun gives to the earth and the earth fertilizes what they give. This principle exists as a universal law. All of us are in our, not in our glory. We are all not being cultivated to be in the glory of who we are. But so the masculine and detriment is something that we have taken on, and we are encouraging all of the mothers and all of the sisters and all of the men and all of the boys to call for integrity, discipline, and action, to bring that balance back into our experience. It is not that those are the only three things that the masculine has, but those three things are quite absent.
Most certainly.
In our experience. And on the feminine side, the divine feminine, we're asking that you have honor, respect, and gratitude, because those are things that support and feed integrity, discipline, and action. So we are two ends of the same idea, and these things could be helpful. So I'm not sure if I answered it.
Yeah, that is a very robust foundation. You put down flooring and everything. So to back it up, what we're experiencing right now in terms of the dynamic between male and female, you've established that there is a very ancient narrative that's playing out that has been unresolved. And, you know, I think for most people on this journey, it's quite obvious. And maybe you have had thoughts of like, why is it that it's like this? You know, and I think that without going into much detail, understanding that the presence of power or the dynamic of power was predominantly women, things happened. Some of my understandings are that there was levels of jealousy, envy, or so to say, more so envy, not jealousy. And then, you know, that anti-life aspect being utilized by off-world beings, where what I have come to understand is that the masculine has been weaponized and used to subjugate, keep humanity subjugated by different levels of anti-life forces. Would you elaborate on that, or does that make sense?
It does. This is what I currently understand at my current level of understanding, is that there were places where vulnerable humans were exposed to traumatic events that stressed and traumatized them. And then those people, and it was instigated from those who were of higher technology. And then those people had children. And then in the children, there was a distortion. So I don't know exactly what the thing was.
Yeah.
But then those children went on to distort others.
Yeah.
And that is the most blameless way I can explain it, that humanity was not fully on board with it, but we were damaged early on in small groups and small villages in different places. And now, you know, many thousands of years later, we are all carrying these ideas, like you said, of envy and jealousy. That is not the signature of a highly vibrational being.
No, especially one who works within universal laws.
Right.
Which, to elaborate a little further, when you were speaking on this, one of the things I see is the masculine that's presented today, or even going back to that moment, there was a schism. There was a separation or fragmentation where we stopped looking at the other as self, especially in the context of male and female. So a lot of this is pointing my focus into oneness, or the loss thereof.
Absolutely. And of course, I don't want to make this a long list of the many things that were
Yeah.
done. However, we all know we have 2 strands of DNA and we're supposed to have 12. So there is that. And so this idea of our cosmic heritage, everything on earth was seeded here. None of us originally were from here. It was all seeded. And then others came in and saw opportunities, I'll put it like that. And in their exercising their opportunity, we grew to where we currently are. I mean, so it's undeniable that the world we live in, we have made with our 2 strands of DNA.
Yeah, because everything kills us. I was looking at EMF tablet cases early, like everything.
Yeah, everything that has been allowed is really about self-hate, self-sabotage. Unless we work at it, we're all sleeper cells, waiting to wake up and destroy ourselves, because that is the information that has been put into humanity at large, whether you live in China or you live in Switzerland or you live in Alaska. There is this making of rules and making of laws that deny, suppress, and limit to make sure that you don't get any further along. And so this is not about us pointing a finger at the masculine. It's really this idea of both polarities of creation have not been allowed to flourish and be nourished. And that our acknowledging this, the purpose of this podcast is to acknowledge it, because once you know it, you can rail against it. You can then choose another experience. You can pursue being able to be your other self, to see, so many people talk about they are God, but if you don't see another person through the eyes of their divinity, this could be something that you could be encouraged to do.
Yeah,
I'll put it like that.
There's so many funny things that pop in my mind. I'm going to write on the last idea you shared, seeing through the eyes of the divine. It's something you shared with me, which it is, look, run this back, seeing through the eyes of the divine. This will help you, especially for people, as you said, aspire to embody some level of godhood or angelhood.
It is not a lie. It is just not activated.
Yeah. But what I think most people are experiencing is a heavy distortion, because there's still some level of separatism existing, and that can't exist within a God-like state.
Yes, however, there is a place at which you can see this. Not everyone has this opportunity, but almost every human alive has the opportunity to see a newborn baby and to see how pure and beautiful it is. And then to feel, I made that I'm part of the creation of this experience. I see how beautifully pure and divine it is. Now, that shifts, but
reading my mind.
it does shift. However, if we can see that moment, we can expand it. We can kick that door open. We can expand it out. The same thing happens. There are people who feel that way about animals, but it's the same idea. We are not separate from animals. We're not separate from the babies. We're not separate from our partners. We're not separate from the earth. We're not separate from the chickens. We don't have to treat the pigs and the cows the way we do. All of this makes us greater, and it makes us see ourselves through the eyes of oneness instead of the separation, like, you're a pig, or you're a cow, or you're a piece of celery. I'm better than a piece of celery. Mm-hmm. But it's all life, and it's all creation, and it's all created. And your godliness helps you see its value and be in honor and respect and reverence to it. Our world has taught us, whenever you revere the sun or the wind or anything, that you are stepping outside of religious confines, and now you're a heretic because you are giving reverence to other things that were created by Creator.
Which is absurd.
Yes, it is.
I'm being mindful to not be judgmental, because it's almost like, how can you not see that it's all, but I keep going to universal laws and principles. If we don't see or live by the laws, then situations like that occur where we attack someone who's reverential to other forms of life.
Yeah.
Not worshiping, but reverential.
Yeah, just the idea that I'm just so grateful that I have, what I have to eat. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that it didn't come out of a lab. It wasn't processed. It's real food. It came from creation. That formula did not come from Kellogg's. It came from, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the sun. I love the way the wind feels through my hair. I'm grateful for the things that man has made too. I'm grateful for a hot shower. I'm grateful for that too. Gratitude is a way in. Being grateful at the masculine or the feminine, being grateful for each other is the way in. In the divine feminine, we encourage women, honor, respect, and gratitude. Honor, respect, and gratitude first to self. Because if you don't have it, you can't give it.
So I want to speak a little bit about that from the masculine perspective and calling in the divine feminine. So the experience, I would say, is somewhat similar to calling to see through the eyes of the divine.
Yes, it is.
But specifically with the divine feminine. And so one of the things that I see with this is, as a male, this information is really for the male that's looking to become balanced,
right.
Who's not in opposition of this concept. So I recall calling in the divine feminine, calling on honor, respect, and gratitude, and seeing how through the embodiment of it, my lens and perception of reality began to shift. I began to see what's really happening with women.
Yes.
I began to understand. I actually began to see things that men or the masculine in detriment is unable to see because they separate themselves from the feminine, right? And there's everything in our society, specifically regarding men, is reinforcing a separation from all feminine attributes, such as like emotion and et cetera, et cetera. You were about to say something?
The Igore, the large spiritual construct that is the divine feminine, or as the divine masculine, is available.
Yes.
And you called upon it. And when you called upon the divine feminine, I remember when you first started doing that, the divine masculine.
Well, it wasn't the divine. It was the masculine in detriment.
The masculine in detriment went in and hit you upside the head. What you doing? Yeah. What are you doing in there with the divine feminine? Those days separate from us. And you were having a real internal spiritual struggle because the Igore, that is the masculine in detriment, could feel you pulling away from where you have been oriented.
May I speak on this a little further? I was sharing with some students in class last night that it's so important to honor and celebrate our victories, because when we make breakthroughs, there's so much more happening than what we are aware. It's several layers, like your soul in this experience. We're dealing with ancestry and DNA that's living right now, that's actively moving in the opposite direction of where you're looking to go. And then the collective morphic field. And I saw all of that happening when the masculine in detriment, which, I live in this soup, it's been inbred within me, raise up. If I had to translate it, it was like, what the hell you think you're doing? Who is this? What are you? And I understand this principle of what you focus on grows. So I was nervous because I could feel almost like rage and anger
coming at you from within the egregore of the masculine.
Yeah, from the fact that I'm calling in this other energy. And I just kept calling on the divine feminine. And I could feel this merging and a subsiding of the frustration and that energy integrate. Yes. But it's a real thing. We are literally going against a larger entity or egregore to pop out ourselves into divinity.
It's a reality and a truth. The biggest takeaway is that you are greater than any thought form, any long-held 1,000-year-old thought form of what a masculine or the feminine should be. We are the new beings. We are the ones. We've been tampered with. We have 2 strands of DNA, but we could call for more, and we can have more. The law is that we get what we call for. If you want to understand what the other aspect of you is experiencing and become, as you have become, an advocate for women while still very clearly a man, you can ask for it and it will be given to you. But it's not to say that you might not have a confrontation inside your spiritual experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that, and it's, I have sons, and there are men in my life who I love and respect, and I want to see them have this same richness of experience. At the same time, I need to be seen as and respected and accepted also, so that they can then get the nourishment that I have and it is available to them from me.
Yeah.
So it works like that. So the way my hands are felt, this is how the masculine and the feminine should work together. It is not any different than the fact that we have one brain and we have specialties on the two polarities. We have two aspects. And when one side is damaged, the other side will take over, and vice versa. And so the magic can happen if something erodes it, but the brain is to work together. It's not like my head has to stay somewhere when my legs go walk somewhere else. But essentially, we've been hopping around on one foot because we're in separation instead of in mutual relationship for the greatest exaltation of all of us, so that we can all live better and go into a time, a new world, where we will be greater than what we have already. I know that everyone is saying we have to go back to when we were great, but that's...
We was kings and queens.
However, the reality is that we're on the precipice of a new world, and we need to move forward.
I agree. It's
into something different, not into the old way.
Yeah, because the old way fell.
Well,
and that's something we got to be real about.
The old way got us here.
Exactly.
At war and in the situation we're in, and that's undeniable. So all of the authority structures that exist in our world brought us to this moment in time.
I feel as though...
So whatever you think about that, I mean, this is, we're not bashing the world. We're just saying, whatever you think of that,
Well, the world in pretty much every aspect is fragmented, broken, and it is not whole. We socially, economically, educational, fragmented. And hearing you say this, I feel as though one of the biggest forms of rebellion against what we aren't pleased with is to create wholeness from within.
Yes, that's really the heretical way to go. Is like, I choose wholeness instead of separation. That's my response to what is the war we're currently in a cosmic war. My response to that is I choose wholeness.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking about what you were saying. You were giving so many examples or analogies of the masculine and detriment, or what people call patriarchy. It's literally hopping on one leg. You're literally just using one side when you have both. And it doesn't make any sense, but we've convinced ourselves that this is the way. And so, yes, let's get heretical and use both sides.
Absolutely. I think this opens the door to this discussion, and if people want to hear more, we can talk more about it. But will you pull a card for...
I certainly will.
Okay. Tell us what your question will be today.
Yeah. Asking to see the truth regarding the masculine and detriment.
And the card is... Last minute re-choosing.
The cards be talking to me. You're like, no, that was this one. Oh, okay. Sacred space. And the maxim reads, everywhere you step is sacred space, but you need to own it, know it, and be it. I think the way we get back to the sacred is recognizing, like what you said earlier, seeing ourselves and everyone else through the lens of the divine. See that in and of itself is inherently sacred.
Yes.
And it allows us to, with that consciousness, we bring that everywhere we go. It protects us. So
and we recognize that creation is the path to the sacredness, that it is not it's not the microwavable food that's the sacred thing. It is not the things that have been man-made without any concern for our nutrition, health, or well-being. Those are not the things that are sacred. We can embody the sacredness by wanting to be in the experience of what we were created to be. You are encouraged to call for life and call back your blueprint. 7 minutes a day, calling back who your original blueprint was, so that you can then bring in the life to you that will take you into the next experience. So we thank you for joining us. We hope you will come again. We give you the greetings of In Lakesh and Veritas with honor, respect, and gratitude. Thank you.